The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, and I think it's the greatest state in the Union. Now, I was born in New York. I may have some arguments there for my guests. George Grimm is here. How are you, George?
Hi, Ralph. Nice to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Good. My pleasure. And James Bloomer comes back. We spoke on this podcast a few weeks ago, and you are the grandson of Babe Ruth. Whoa.
That's right.
I tingle, and I sent you a book, my book, George Grimm's book, and which mentions your grandfather 2 or 3 times, and
yep.
He was a pretty good hitter, I might say.
he had a knack, yeah.
Yeah, he had something going for him. He was James. You enjoyed the book.
Oh yeah. I think my granddad. He met a lot of his friends that. Shoeless Joe Jackson was his mentor. He learned how to hit for power from Shoeless Joe, and for the average. And at the Antonio Hotel in New York City is where the White Sox stayed, and my grandfather had an apartment there, and he spent a lot of time with Shoeless Joe, and learned how to hit, with power and with his load when he would get ready for the pitch, where his hands were, where his hips were. It was all a flow. Like Shoeless Joe was 357 lifetime, and my granddad was 342. But Shoeless Joe didn't hit nearly the number of home runs. Of course, he was playing mainly in the dead ball era. But,
James, can you clear up any misconceptions that we have about Shoeless Joe and what happened in the scandal and with the White Sox? Give us something we don't know. We're always looking to enrich our knowledge.
I don't really have anything other than I know that my granddad, Shoeless Joe, quit playing. My granddad went down. Shoeless Joe is opening a dry cleaning business in Greenville, South Carolina, and my granddad went down and gave him $50,000 for his business to get it going.
Wow.
Yeah, so he felt that he owed Shoeless Joe because he helped him so much, and he helped a lot of people. But Lou Gehrig, he was only making $7,000 when my grandfather was making $80,000. So they'd go touring, and Granddad would put money in his pocket. So he was knocking in 140 runs a year. Gehrig was, and hitting 40 home runs. So he was helping out. It wasn't like he was.
Let's put something into perspective. Financially, $50,000 in those days was big money.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Without a
now,
doubt.
Your granddad made more money reputedly in touring with Lou Gehrig. Is that correct?
Yeah, because it was cash business. There were no checks. They paid cash. So it was very hard to. Christy Walsh, the business manager, handled the books, and it was cash, and you can't follow cash. It's hard.
No. No taxes, in other words.
Yeah.
No, I know that Pete Rose did time for tax evasion for not paying on, taxes on his autograph business, but my granddad never charged for an autograph, other than when he was trying to raise money for St. Mary's and Father Matthias. He never charged for an autograph, so it was a whole different ballgame then. Yeah. He probably they say my granddad signed 10,000 autographs in his lifetime. Didn't charge for them, so
no.
They're out there. They're out there somewhere. I don't have one. George
has some questions for you, if you would.
Sure.
Yeah. How did the Babe feel about Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier? He was still alive at the time, so how do you feel about it?
Yeah, he was happy. He was happy that it happened because my granddad played against Satchel and all kinds, Bell and Josh Gibson. He played against those guys on a tour when they toured. So it wasn't a big deal. My granddad used to hang out at the Hot Cotton Club. So it wasn't a big deal. He loved Billie Holiday. So, yeah, that was never a problem with Babe.
Good.
There
I played on Jackie Robinson Field when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that?
Let's not forget you and your baseball prowess. You played, what was it, USC?
No, I played at University of Pacific in Stockton, California.
Oh,
home of Ernest
right.
Thayer, the guy that wrote Casey at the Bat. And you remember Steve Dalkowski? Do you remember Steve Dalkowski, the guy that threw the ball 105 miles an hour in the 1960s?
I heard the name, yeah.
Yeah, he was a Baltimore farmhand, and he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and I think it was 65 or 6, and he was standing in left field at Billy Hebert Field in Stockton, California, and that's where I used to patrol. I was a left fielder. Our Franz Virella was a center fielder, and Scott Boris was our right fielder. So.
Wow. And I spent a lot of time at that stadium when I was the Topps representative on the West Coast, and the California.
Yeah, you met
League,
Gary Sheffield there.
Yes.
That's in the book too.
That's in the book. Boy, you retained you really read it.
I got one for you. Butch Benton. Butch was my catcher in Lynchburg, Virginia. Jack Aker was the manager in 76 and 77. And Butch, he was a body from God. I mean, he had a body like Mickey Mantle had body. And he was a good catcher. But I don't know why the Mets just did not bring him up. So I'm working in Texas, in Arlington, Texas, on the ground crew, and Cleveland's in town. And lo and behold, they brought up two guys that I knew that weekend. Butch Benton, I hadn't seen him since 77, and this is 85, and he still looks great. You know, he's still – and then Dave Von Olen, who pitched for me in Lynchburg. We had a lot of good pitchers there in Lynchburg, I'm telling you. Juan Berenguer, Cliff Speck, Neil Allen, Jeff Reardon. I mean, the Mets weren't light on pitching.
No. And Neil Allen was traded for Keith Hernandez. So he's got a pretty good trivia thing going for him.
Neil's father was blind, and Neil was really worried that it was a hereditary thing, so he pitched under a lot of pressure. But Jack Aker, he's the best pitching coach in the world. I do love Jack Aker. I think the world of him, and he was the pitching coach in 89 with Pat Corrales was manager of Cleveland, and Jack was pitching coach, and I went out and had a drink with him, and he told me the politics got to him. The politics got to him.
Okay. More questions from George.
Sure. Okay. What about the called shot? Was there any family lore about Babe's called shot in Chicago?
Well, I'd never been to Wrigley Field. I'd been by it 100 times, but I'd never been to Wrigley Field. Last Memorial Day, I went to Wrigley Field, and I met Roger Bayard, B-A-I-R-D, who is a stadium operations guy. He was the head groundskeeper. He's been there for 57 years, and his father was there for 55 years.
Wow.
And his father knew my grandfather. His father saw my grandfather play, and he knew him. So Roger, he's 77 years old, and he's still they played a doubleheader, a day-night doubleheader, and Roger was working the vacuum in the stands at 77. So, what I know about the called shot was the Cubs were all over my grandfather. They were brutal. They were really tearing him apart. Whereas the White Sox, they liked my granddad, but the Cubs hated my grandfather. So what happened was Charlie Root was the pitcher, and he got a couple calls from the umpire. They weren't strikes, and then they called them strikes. And my grandfather was perturbed, and he just pointed to center field, and Charlie laid one in, and the Babe hit it right over his head to the flagpole. So, it was. I'm saying that blood is thicker than water. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention Wrigley Field. My 25-year-old nephew was out there last weekend. Him and his friends took a baseball weekend. They went to Wrigley, they went to Chicago White Sox game, and then they went to see the Brewers up in Milwaukee. So they had a baseball weekend for themselves. Then they had a great time.
I had a teammate in college. That played second base for the Cubs in 1975. Pete Lecoq, Peter Marshall's son, was the first baseman. Madlock was the third baseman, and Ivan DeJesus, who came over from the Dodgers, was the shortstop, and Hundley was the catcher. But,
Mad Dog Matlock.
Yeah, Mad Dog.
Played a little bit with the Giants, and I don't think he was happy in San Francisco for one reason or another, but he
wasn't the Kung Fu Panda. The Panda. He was the popular third baseman.
Yeah. What do you think of the rule changes? I'll interject a question. I didn't ask you this last time. How have the changes in baseball affected what you think about it? When you go to a game, were you happier the way it used to be or the way it is now?
Well, I like the 2 hour and 40-minute games because the pace is there. But I don't like having a clock in baseball. There's no place for a clock in baseball. It's America's pastime. It's not America's timing clock. So I don't like clocks in baseball. The players in the old days, they hustled. They did not mess around. And you didn't have television, so you didn't have 2 minutes between every inning. The pitchers went out. They didn't throw their best stuff in warm-ups like they do now. They throw the ball 95 miles an hour in their warm-ups. They just tossed the ball to get their arms loose, and then they were ready. And the game had a flow to it. There's an ebb and flow in baseball, and it's natural rhythms. And if you play a doubleheader on Sunday and you got a day game the next day, or a game the next day, you're not going to have the same energy level that you did during that doubleheader. So it might take a little bit longer for the players to get through that Monday game, but consequently, it all evens out in the long run. And as long as the players are hustling and knowing how many outs there are, it drives me crazy when players today don't know how many outs there are, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. What do they have to worry about? They got too much to think about. They're looking under their caps at their directions and what they're going to eat for lunch tomorrow, and where they're supposed to play against they're overloaded. It's our kids in Little League are overloaded with information. Yogi said it best. I didn't come up here to think. I came up here to hit. And he cleared his mind out, and he was a very good hitter. And he was a sucker for a pitched ball. I love guys that just go up, they're relaxed at the plate, and they see it, and they hit it, and they run like hell is chasing them. And you got so many guys today, they got so many worries, and, I see this Stanton on the Yankees, and I feel for the guy. He's brittle as heck, and he keeps getting hurt, and he brings the energy level of the Yankees down with him every time he comes back because it takes him a month to get going again. And these guys are not we played through a lot of hurts, a lot of arms, a lot of pulled muscles. We didn't talk about it. We just played. It was our badge of honor was to play every day, not to take days off. But you got these agents that are so, they're handling these kids, these players with kid gloves. They aren't letting them be who they really are. I think these players are a lot tougher than these agents are allowing them to be. I'm watching Cole right now, and he threw 107 pitches last game, and he'll tell Boone, he'll say, just let me go, man. I'm out here to win. I want to finish a game, and I like that. I want a pitcher that wants to finish a game.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, we had guys we looked up to: Koufax, Drysdale, Marshall, Gibson, Seaver. Those guys, they were men's men. They had a good basis. They had great legs. They had great stamina, and they didn't throw all with their arm. They threw with their legs. They pushed off Ryan, And now we got these guys with workloads and pitch counts and all this, and they're ruining. How many kids do you think are going to be able to throw 100 miles an hour for 20 years? They can't do it. The human body cannot physically do it. So you got 18-year-old kids worried about when's their first Tommy John surgery coming up.
Right.
I heard some kid. I clean up Doubleday Field every day, and I was there today, and I heard a couple of 13-year-olds playing catch out in the parking lot talking about their ACL. Their ACL. Oh, my ACL. We didn't know what an ACL was.
I didn't know I had one when I was 13 years old. But
the medical, we've become so brainwashed with Tommy John and all this medical expertise of the doctors. And, it's not healthy. It's just not healthy. I'm 71, almost 71 years old. I don't take any medication and no prescriptions, and I take 22 supplements every day, and I feel great. And I ride a motorcycle. I ride bicycles. I'm healthy, and I believe that your mind is your key to good health. It's not letting the doctor in to tell you every day how sick you are. And we got too many doctors putting crap in our kids' heads that they're sick and they're weary and they're depressed and all that. Go out and have fun. I certainly did. Hey, I used to ride my bicycle from West Covina all the way up Azusa Avenue to Irv Noren Sporting Goods Shop in Azusa on Highway 39, and I didn't even know who Irv Noren was. I just knew he had a lot of great baseball stuff.
Well, I don't know if you caught it, but I just published an interview that I did with Irv Noren on Facebook, kind of a I have this podcast going, and I publish some of the best interviews I've done, and Irv Noren got a lot of hits on that interview. He was traded. He was kept when the Yankees traded Jackie Jensen, who came up with them. And Irv Noren had a terrific year in 1954. And then he kind of fell off the table. I wonder why that was.
I don't have any idea. I just I don't know, but I know this, that in his sporting goods store there in Azusa, he had no plaques, no trophies, anything. He had one little blurb that was like a plaque on the wall that lets you know that he was a Yankee. But it wasn't like he had all his uniforms up and all that. No, he was a sporting goods businessman, and my main sporting goods store was Chicks on Citrus Avenue in Covina, and we won the city championship when I was 11 years old, and we beat Rob Wilfong's team, and he was 10 and I was 11, and I knew I had made it because Chicks let me go downstairs to the basement and pick out my wood after that.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I was a Nellie Fox disciple, and I patterned my game after Nellie, so I had those thick bottle, bats, and they let me go down and big thick handle on a Nellie Fox bat. Yeah, it wasn't as thick as Jackie Robinson's, but it was pretty darn thick. But I always choked up and just hit the ball around and hit a lot of doubles, and that was my game. Okay, you live in Cooperstown, right? How many people do you surprise when you tell them that you were Babe Ruth's grandson? Or Babe Ruth's
everybody. Everybody.
They come up to Doubleday, and there's a sign that says Doubleday Field, and there are three lights, right, floodlights in the ground, in the pavement, right in front of Doubleday Field. And that's where they take the pictures. And invariably, I'll introduce myself and say, I'm Babe Ruth's grandson. Would you like to have a picture with the Babe's grandson? And either they do or they don't. And, I surprise a lot of people. A lot of people want to talk a lot more than that. And we go in and to Doubleday in box 3 and sit down and talk baseball.
Wow. You have a good life going. You have a good life going for you, James. You got baseball every day. And
I work with a bunch of great kids. Zach Crippen is the head groundskeeper at Doubleday Field, and he's a great guy. And he's been there. This is his third season, and his half brother, I call him Snap Leather, but his name's Tanner Crippen. He's the half brother, and his first cousin is Henry Loeffler, and the fourth. And Henry is going to Utica College next season to play football, and he's graduating today from Cooperstown High School. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But these kids, they work their tails off, and I'm 100% behind them because I was a groundskeeper, and I love the work, and I love being at the ballpark, and it's a good environment. It's just people, it's like Disneyland. You know, it's the greatest place on God's green earth because people are happy to be there. You know, it's not like they're forced to come to Cooperstown.
What? Clear something up for me. Is there not a advantage, a home team advantage when you have a groundskeeper, that a Matty Schwab kind of guy who can tailor
slope the lines?
Yeah.
They did that for Nellie Fox and Aparicio all the time. They sloped the lines so the balls would stay fair. If they bunted it on the dirt, it would stay fair. Yeah. Hey, when I was in Texas with the Rangers, Billy Martin had been the manager there, and I found all the spots around the stadium where Billy had scouts that would steal the catcher signals. There were several. Yeah. You know, Billy's buried 100 feet from my grandfather. George Steinbrenner got that. Yeah, and he died on the same day as my mother. My mom died on Christmas in 2015, and Billy died on Christmas in 1999. So.
Wow. Your head is filled with the same sort of stuff that mine is filled with. Just a lot of minutia, a lot of trivia. What was your biggest moment in baseball?
Oh, winning a national championship in the American Legion, without a doubt. We didn't even win our league in Southern California, and we won the national championship to show you what kind of competition we had. And we won going away. We won our last two games against Cedar Rapids, Iowa, 2 and 16-5. So, and four of those guys, after the Major League Baseball had drafted our four best pitchers and our shortstop off our original team, I got guys to come play that had played Connie Mack all summer, and they had played high school ball with me. And Max Snyder was our Maddox before Maddox ever thought about being Maddox. He could spot. He didn't throw hard, but he put it right where he wanted to. And our shortstop was Ron Zakor. And Ronnie, I got a scholarship to the University of Pacific for Ronnie, and we played together for 2 years at Pacific. But a great natural hitter, and he was like Yogi. He was not. He wasn't a nuclear physicist, but he was a yogiism type guy. You know, when he talked, he made sense. You know, he was just really basic. You know, and he was one of the few Lebanese people in the world to play. He was a good baseball player and a good friend. And I have not kept track of Ronnie or Max. And Max was Jewish, and Ronnie was Lebanese, and they were the best of friends in West Covina, California, growing up. I played
as a
pony
Jew,
league.
I love to hear that. That because there was one big desert, and a lot of people came out of there, and you went your separate ways. But we're all the same people when you think about it. We're humans.
Yeah. Exactly.
Putting tags on, and I think a lot of it has to do with, a lot of it, most of it, religion. And I think religion is doesn't bring the world together; it tears us apart. That's just
that's why Doubleday Field is the cathedral of baseball. It doesn't matter what color you are on that field. If you can play, you can play. Doesn't matter what religion you are. If you can play, you can play. It doesn't matter if you're a Abenaki Indian or you're whatever you are. It doesn't matter. If you can play baseball, you can play. And I'm here to tell you that we have some kids that have phenomenal ability. I'm unbelievable. I mean, just making plays, going in the hole that I've never seen. And, I would not think a kid at 12 could make that kind of a play. But they're getting coaching, and they're working hard. But I just hope they don't burn themselves out, because we're seeing these injuries to Trout and Harper and all these guys that played year-round baseball over year after year, and they're getting burned out and they're getting injuries. I hope they played other sports. I encourage kids to play other sports. I don't care if it's football, soccer, basketball, whatever. But play other sports. Give your body a rest. And that was one of the things in California. We played year-round. And we had it over the Eastern teams, but the Eastern guys developed later, and they had longer careers. Mike Cubbage, and there were a lot of guys. Tommy Brookins. Okay. There were a lot of guys that, played. They played longer because they had seasons, and I think God has a reason. Turn. And then if you don't give your body time to rest and heal, you're just destroying yourself. You can't do it year after year. And you see, when I was running ball clubs, the Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, they would go play winter ball in Sauternes or wherever, and they played harder for their home fans than they did for the American fans. They hustled down there because they were gods. They were idolized in their homeland. And, there was a whole bunch of them that played. We had a guy, when Tommy Lasorda put together, it was actually Walter Alston put together the infield of Say, Russell, Lopes, and Garvey, and Yeager and Ferguson, who Ferguson, by the way, played at Pacific. Tommy Lasorda got the credit for that infield that stayed together for 9 years. But it was actually Walter Alston that started them out in 73, the first time they played together in 73. Tommy wasn't the manager until 76. But we had two guys in Waterbury, Connecticut. I started the season with Terry Collins was my shortstop, and Jim Riggleman was my third baseman. They got moved up. And Jose Baez and Rafael Landestroy were our second baseman and our shortstop. And Rafael Landestroy played 7 good years with the Astros, and Jose Baez, I know he played 5 years with Seattle, in Seattle. But the Dodgers, I played 4 years. I was a 4-year letterman in college baseball, D1. And I played against a guy by the name of Mark Hance, who played at Fresno State. And Mark Hance was he was the epitome of a professional-looking ball player. He wasn't the Penguin, right? Ron Say was the Penguin, right? But Mark Hance was the classic, like Schmidt. He was just a classic-looking ball player, and he burned up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His whole career was spent in Albuquerque because they would not move him up. So I just hated to see that. You know, there was no more competition.
Those were the days before free agency. And a player could get stuck like that in the minors if you were behind someone for your entire career, and that's it.
Yeah.
And
well, my manager in Waterbury was Ducky LeJohn, and he played in the minors for 9 years. And he got brought up 1 week in September in 1965. He's on the field, breaks his leg, and he's done. He's out. He played in the majors for 1 week. 1 week. And Ducky, his son, had played at Yavapai Junior College, and he was a good friend of Rick Sutcliffe's. And Sutcliffe is a legend among the Dodgers and Cub fans because he cleaned Tommy Lasorda's office with Tommy in it. and by doing that, he got a change of scenery.
You get and a plane ticket or a bus ticket out.
You don't mess with Tommy Lasorda's office, believe me.
Sometimes you got to take matters into your own hands.
Well, he did.
Tommy Lasorda was one of a kind. Let's put it that way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I have. Go ahead.
No, I got when I was in Waterbury, Ron Peranowski was the roving pitching instructor, and Ronnie would come in, once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and he was sitting on an airplane with a salesman one time, and he said, "Where are you headed?" And Ron said, "Well, I'm going to Waterbury." And he said, "What'd you do? Lose the contest?" I had more fun at the ballpark in Waterbury. It wasn't a baseball field. It had a track running through the outfield, right? and remember the softball player Joan Joyce? She was she struck out Ted Williams. Yeah, she struck out Ted Williams on 3 pitches. I mean, she was a phenomenal women's softball pitcher. Well, her brother Jimmy Joyce was our PA announcer. So we had all these old scouts like Dixie Walker and Reggie Otero, who was a Cuban. We had Len Morello, Buddy Kerr, and they used to tell these stories. They'd sit right behind the backstop, and I'd sit with them during the ball games, and they told stories that were unbelievable about the Brooklyn Dodgers, about fights on the field. That the players put a ring around the players and they let them fight. It was a whole different society then, But the stories about Johnny Padres and the horses, and Johnny Padres would have been a Hall of Famer if he could have just cleaned it up a little bit, because he didn't care. He give me the ball when you need a win, and I'll go get it for you. That was his philosophy. And other than that, he was having a cocktail and playing the ponies.
Johnny
I got to know Johnny. Biggest win in the history.
Drysdale and Koufax both pitched for the Brooklyn Dodgers, but they weren't stars back then. Padres was the only Brooklyn Dodger who became a star he was as a Brooklyn Dodger. As when he went to L.A., he became a star pitcher with L.A. There weren't many like Johnny Padres. And
no, but he won the biggest game in the history of the Brooklyn Dodgers when he won the 7th game in the '55 World Series. And
he never bought a drink. He never bought a drink in New York for the rest of his life, and because he was reputedly quite a drinker. Padres.
Well, he was a buddy of my a guy I played with in Legion Ball, Rob Wilfong, who was an all-star in Minnesota and got traded. He was from West Covina, and he got traded for a West Covina boy, Tommy Bernansky, who I went to school with his big brother Joe, and Tommy, Rob would go out. Johnny was the pitching coach in Minnesota, and Rob would tell me all the time. He goes, Johnny would come up and go, "Hey, Wilfong, how about a cocktail?" So they go out and have a cocktail.
Good influence on the young guys.
Yeah, but they got a outside the museum, outside the library at the museum, Baseball Hall of Fame, is Johnny Padres throwing to Roy Campanella, and it's fitting. Wow. Johnny Padres is outside the Hall of Fame, but he's a Hall of Famer in my book. He won when you had to win. He's like Whitey Ford, you know. He just, when you need the big win, give me the ball. Put the ball in my shoe. I'll be ready.
Who belongs in the Hall of Fame and who doesn't, James?
Well, if you go on...
belongs and isn't, and...
Well, Koufax won. He won. Okay, he didn't have a long career. He only had 5 or 6 good years. But when they name you Donnie Baseball, and everybody calls you Donnie Baseball, I believe Donnie Baseball belongs in the Hall of Fame. He was that good. And he suffered from back pain injuries late in his career. A lot of people don't think Thurman Munson belongs in the Hall of Fame, but I certainly do. When you have been as down as the Yankees were when CBS owned them, and you brought them back up starting in '73 when Steinbrenner bought the ball club, and you won in '77 and '78, and were in position to win in '79. Thurman was a Hall of Famer.
Okay.
Without a doubt.
Who's your favorite player today, in today's game?
I really don't have one. I'm a team guy. I love the Yankees, and I wish they had more esprit de corps, more fire, and less yoga, less zen. I wish they would had a little more fire. You know, I wish Rizzo was more of an attractor. You know, because the Babe had Lou Gehrig. They were a frickin' frack. They were inseparable. And then when guys got traded to the Yankees late in their careers, they had better years than they had. Ian Slaughter with Mickey Mantle and Johnny Mize. There is energy. That's what I loved about the old ballpark. The house that Ruth built was the energy. There was, so much history and, life there. And I don't feel it in the new stadium. I just don't. I haven't even stepped foot in the new stadium. I just don't feel it.
You mentioned Lou Gehrig and with the Babe. Any misconceptions on their relationship, how they got along or didn't get along? that you'd like to pass
Oh, they got
on?
along. They got along great. There was a time that late, there was a lot of stress on Lou. A lot of people didn't want him to have that streak because he would play through colds and broken bones, and he played hurt a lot to have that streak. But he was just, he had the philosophy that that's my job and I'm going to it and I'm going to do it every day. And I think Cal Ripken hurt his ball club by continuing the streak when he played hurt. There's a lot of pressure on that, and I think it detracts from the team effect. Everything you should do on a ball club is to win as a team, because not one guy can win a ring. He can win a silver bat, he can win a gold glove, but you know what? That ring is everything. And Yogi had 10 of them. Gamash had 7. Mantle had 7. My grandfather had 7. Winning is endemic. If you are a winner, you know how to win. That's just part of the game. When you have won a lot, you learn how to win. And I played on a college team that had talent but didn't know how to win. Egos got me and ruined it for everybody. Very few guys. One guy in my 4 years played in major leagues off that team, Rob Sparing.
Whoa.
And we had talent that we had 5 guys that should have been in the big leagues, but it's just whether the coach can get.
James, time flies when you're on. So I'm going to let George close it out, asking anything that's on his mind.
No, I'm just having a real good time listening to all these old baseball tales. I've always liked listening to athletes tell their hockey players and baseball players tell their tales from the old days, and I like hearing about Babe and Lou Gehrig and all those older players, and I'm really eating this up. So
okay,
yeah. Hey, Ralph.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to share with you. My email is bornintobaseball714 at gmail.com, and Jim Campanis is Born Into Baseball. He doesn't have a number on his, but it is at Jim Campanis. But he said that there was one thing in your book that I noticed, that he said Bill Buckner gave him hitting lessons 3 weeks after he made that error in the '86 World Series. But he was talking about 1974, and Billy Buckner he made that error in '86. So it was confusing to me in the book. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the book has confused many people, educated many people as well. So there's kind of a trade-off there. We're proud of the book. George and I are proud of the book, and proud of the fact that you liked it.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think it's great. I'm thankful that I had the chance to meet you and read your book.
Well, I'm thankful I got the chance to not only meet you, but meet George Grimm, who made the interviews I've done into a book. And we work together really well, George and I. And when you talk about teamwork, that we had that going for us. Come back and chat with us anytime. We'd love to have you back, James.
Well, anytime you invite me, Ralph. Nice meeting you, George.
Thank you. You
All
too.
right.
Good to be talking to you.
God bless.
Okay. Thank you for listening, everybody. James Bloomer, George Grimm, my friend. James Bloomer, my new friend. And I'm thrilled. This was a terrific podcast. And what can I say? Come back again and join us. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. So join us again. Thank you.
Right.
Adios, everybody,
Bye-bye.
and happy trails. See you soon.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.